Welcome to the Reigning Defend Undefeated Undisputed Most Secret Podcast on God's least favorite planet, a little show we call Nobody As Shawn, hosted by Chico Diamante, the Diamond Boy, the Thin Black Duke, the Shogun's Decapitator, Shy Halud, Shawnee Paper Towels, the Done To His Promise, the Prince of the Parlays, International Heartthrob, heir to the Murray's, hair made fortunate, of course, the first Jamaican in the Kentucky Derby. Today's a little bonus episode where we're going to talk about Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, one of the most anticipated movies of the year, especially one of the most anticipated Marvel movies of the year. So let's get the part you probably came here for out the way up front. It's not better. And if anyone out there attempts to tell you that it's better, they're lying to you. And that's not like a slight to the movie. I don't think there's any possible way that this movie could have been better for Black Panther. For a number of reasons. Like, Black Panther is held up as one of the better entries in the MCU. As well as the superhero subgenre overall, and there's good reason for that. Like, Ryan Coogler and company had a monumental task on their hands. Like, not only as a team task with making a Black Panther movie that lived up to his like exciting debut in Captain America: Civil War, but also like positioning the character as a central figure in the next phase while holding what felt like the fate of Black Hollywood in their hands. Like, Black people was finished in the industry if they didn't come with that movie. And that's mad unfair, but like, it's in everything when it comes to us. So it had to like satisfy shareholders, add to the ongoing MCU project, appeal to wide audiences, all while serving as a representational totem for Black audiences specifically. And aside from some janky third act CGI and some weird CIA stuff that feels sort of inescapable in these movies, they did that shit. Like, Black Panther is good as hell. It was fresh. It was exciting. And it disproved the Black people can't open blockbusters adage in the industry. And because it went on to become one of the highest grossing films of all time. Like, not even just one of the highest grossing superhero movies. And all that becomes like twice as true and twice as impactful in the wake of Chadwick Boseman's unexpected death. So then Black Panther, for better or worse, now means a lot more than it ever would have had he lived. Despite how good it was to begin with. Like, we all liked Black Panther. We all loved Black Panther. So then Wakanda Forever then became an even more monumental task in itself, as it once again had to try to do all those things that the first entry does, while holding the albatross of Boseman's death around his neck. Like, when your first movie makes $2.1 billion, like, it's a lot to live up to then come back without your star. And like, this is a movie that a lot of people felt like shouldn't have been made in the first place, which I understand. But the MCU project is too big, and they've positioned Wakanda as such a central location and the Black Panther as such a central character in the MCU project as a whole that it's sort of like impossible not to make the movie. So we kind of wind up with like a show must go on situation, like it or not. So once you decide to make it, now there's a lot of questions you ask, like, do you recast T'Challa? And like, no, of course you can't. Like, you just don't do that. But it'd be wrong. But like, how do you make a Black Panther movie without T'Challa, especially when he doesn't die as a part of the on-screen narrative? Like, we'll address how he is dies in the film, but like, he wasn't intended to die in this series. So like, so what do? You make Wakanda Forever a sprawling, imperfect, but valiant attempt at picking up the pieces. I think it's the best entry in Phase 4, and that might be an indictment of this current phase, which I have not really loved. So it's more of a tip of the cap to this cast and crew for making lemonade out of some fucked up lemons. Like, it winds up better than it should be, but not quite as good as it could be, or rather, not quite as good as you hope. Because like, I feel like this is one that everyone hoped would be good, and even more so with what's hanging over the entire production. I think it's one that we all hope to love, and there's a lot to love. So let's start with that. First and foremost, all praise be to our goddess Angela Bassett, radiant, elegant, gorgeous. I do it in a heartbeat. But that's neither here nor there. Second most importantly, Namor. This movie, like I said, has its flaws, but what they did with the Namor is like, it can't be overstated. I think Namor is the most interesting character they've ever had in any of these movies, in its entire universe. And Namor has always been a fascinating character in his own right. But like, this reimagining of Namor is incredible. One of the best parts of Black Panther, the first one, was how they crafted Wakandan culture by taking parts of various African cultures to create a world that felt both entirely new and historically and culturally accurate to Africa as we know it, at least as Americans. I can't speak for how Africans feel about it, but so Wakanda is now like no longer feels like an entirely fictional place, but it feels like a country that could exist, even though it doesn't. And then they do the same thing with Namor and Talocan, like making Namor a hero, dare I say a god, of Mesoamerican culture, literally born out of European oppression and having so much Mayan and Aztec inspiration behind the character's formulation, gives the audience something much richer to chew on than the Namor of the comics. Like, this Namor isn't from Atlantis, he's from Talocan, a place of his and his people's own creation. It's brilliantly done. And even with all that said, none of it would work without the performance of Tenoch Huerta, who is an absolute star to make it. Like, he's been in acting for a while. He's been like Narcos Mexico, I think. But like, he brings such charm and grace and menace in equal measure. And like, every second on screen with him is just like, you want more of it. Like the more of the comics always felt to me like he was just like an asshole. Like, he was mean, and like, he had good reason a lot of the times. Like, he always had beef with the surface world. But like, this Namor has like many of the great villains in cinema history, a likability to him that like makes your feelings about him complex. Like, you dislike him, but you do like him, and you don't want him to do what he does, and you get how he does it. Like, it's like, when he was first cast, I was a little skeptical because he was like relatively unknown. But like, I want to see more of this character as soon as possible. Something else that works, the handling of Boseman's passing. Like, I think one of the biggest questions was how the death would be addressed in the film. Smartly, I think they got it out. They got into it immediately. Like, they ripped the Band-Aid off and they addressed it head on. And for the most part, they get it out of the way early. Like, Wakanda grieving the loss of T'Challa is one of the backbones of the movie, but it doesn't get as much direct focus as you might expect. And more on that later. Ludwig Göransson is once again quiet MVP of this movie and this series. His expanded soundscape powers so much of this movie, and like, it might be early to say this, but I think this score might be better than the original. It's just fascinating. So many new sounds. It was awesome. Letitia Wright was given a lot to carry in this movie. She hits it out of the park. Like, the only thing I think I put damper on her performance was knowing how much turmoil was caused behind the scenes because of her anti-vaccine stance. I know Disney was pissed with her after they essentially hand her the franchise. And then she just went full Kyrie on them niggas. Like not full Kyrie, because we know there have been some developments with the Kyrie saga over the last few weeks that make him a little bit more volatile. But I know Coogler just must have been like, yo, what the fuck is you doing, dog? Like, yo, shut up. Don't say nothing about vaccines. Just take your shit and go. Like, but like, nevertheless, she was very good. I thought Dominic Thorne was really good as Riri Williams. Soon to be known as to the world as Ironheart. She brought like a lot of the same charisma and chutzpah as Letitia Wright did in the first film, but I think Ironheart is also indicative of some of the issues that I have with the movie. Like, this is where we kind of gonna get into spoiler territory. Like, so like, Ironheart does not need to be in this movie at all. Like, that's not to say that there is no narrative purpose to her existence in the movie. In fact, much of the driving action of the movie is centered around her, but my question is why? Like, I feel like the biggest flaw of this movie is that it's all over the place. Like, it introduces Namor, it introduces Ironheart, it has a CIA subplot, it has all these threads to focus on that I think the internal conflict of Wakandans gets shortchanged. Like I said earlier, like, this movie isn't nearly as about the grief over T'Challa's death as you would expect. And it's because there are other things to focus on. Like, it's the MCU of it all, I think, is the problem with this movie. Like, there's a movie in here. There's a movie within this movie about how the death of T'Challa threatens to destabilize Wakanda's position as the most powerful nation on Earth. And, like, time is spent on that, but I don't think we really go as deep as we could on it. There are some council meetings, like, you know, they talk about what to do next and et cetera, but I feel like the meetings aren't merely as consequential as those same meetings were in the first film. I feel like what this movie needed to do was to go deeper, like deeper into Wakandan lore, deeper into the interiority of Wakandans as a whole, and their new normal, which is being out there without their protector. And as all that comes to a head, the threat of Namor and Talocan arises and threatens to eliminate Wakanda altogether. And we get some of that, like that's in the movie again. But there's also a muddiness to it, to some of the things going on that make those moments get a little lost. From like an issue for me was the Shuri vengeance subplot. It felt a little unearned to me. Like, not that she doesn't have reason, but like, for example, she says she's mad at the world at some point in the film, and she says like it's because of T'Challa's death and also her mother's death. And she wants to kill Namor as a result of that, but like we don't really see that in her behavior for most of the film. Like, she's largely the same Shuri that she's always been. I remember Letitia Wright says in an interview like she's burying herself in technology to hide from grieving, but it's like she was burying herself in technology in the first. Like, that's what she's known for as a character. Like, this like mainly how we interact with. That's mainly how we interacted with her throughout the movie. So then, like, to say that that's how she's grieving is like, that could be true, but it's not. Like, I remember in was it Iron Man 2 where like Iron Man 2 and 3 where like Tony's building all the suits because it's like the paranoia. That is more effectively done than how Letitia Wright is grieving with her insistence on like burying herself in her technological pursuits. It feels like she's largely the same Shuri she's always been. And then we get to the sort of ill-conceived visit with Killmonger in the ancestral plane that activates like this dark side of her. Now she's like vengeful. And the problem with that appearance is that not only would it take much, not only would it not take much for Shuri to attack the flawed logic of Killmonger's words, but also his very appearance feels like a Hail Mary attempt at creating drama born out of the unfortunate circumstances of the movie. Like, this is again where Chadwick Boseman's death hangs mightily over it. Like, she should be visiting Chadwick Boseman in Afterlife. That's the problem. It's like, and that's impossible without some sort of like ghoulish, ill-advised CG recreation of Chadwick Boseman. So we're stuck with Killmonger, who advises her to wage war against a foe who, up until that point, we know Wakanda can't even hope to defeat. Like, they were getting washed by the Talokanians or whatever, Talokani. And then there's so little resistance from the Wakandan people, and so little resistance inside Shuri herself, that her ultimate decision to spare Namor's life in the end is welcome, but like not nearly as cathartic as it could have been, I feel. And it can be a little difficult to talk about this movie. It's very difficult to talk about this movie because it's one of the like adages in criticism is like critique the movie that you got, not the movie that you wanted to get. And I don't think I had a particular hopes for this movie other than, like I said, I wanted it to be good. I wanted to love it. And there's a lot I love about it, but I feel like I said, this movie almost should not have existed. So the fact that it was even any good is a strong bonus, but you can't just give it an A because, you know, it's not an A for effort situation. Like I said before, it exists in the MCU, so it can't exist outside the MCU. But like, I feel like all the sort of prerequisite parts of it make it difficult. Like I know Chadwick, I know fucking Ryan Coogler didn't sit down and write a script where he's like, I gotta have Riri Williams in this. Like, you know, and I think Riri Williams is an interesting character. I think Ironheart is an interesting character. And again, they do a good job of including her in the plot, but I don't think she needs to be there because it's like, what is her arc in the film? You know what I mean? Martin Freeman's character is back. What is his arc in the film? Even Namor's arc is interesting. And we know, like, the instant that they announced Namor as the character, you know what's going to happen if you know anything about the comics. Namor is famous is for being one of the only characters, if not the only character, who's ever successfully like waged war with Wakanda and you know, like lived to tell the tale. Like, called himself a victor. Like, he destroyed Wakanda in a lot of ways. I think some of the action suffered from the same issues that the first film suffered from the third act. Like the action sequence on the sort of Wakandan like aircraft carrier sort of ship at the end is there's a couple of cool moments, but like it's inessential, and it's essential to the plot, cause like what's happening like activity wise, but like it's not exciting. It's not doesn't feel spirited in the same way of some of the action sequences in some of these other movies. Even like the South Korea chase in I think it was South Korea in Black Panther 1 was very good. And there's a similar like chase sequence with when they first sort of meet up with Riri Williams in Cambridge. But it feels like a movie that was contractually obligated, and I don't begrudge anyone for fulfilling their contract. But I wanted a little bit more. Again, it's a good movie. Like I felt satisfied walking out of it. I thought it was well done, but it wasn't as good as it could have been. But like, how could it have been? You know what I mean? Like, there's so much to like about it. I think like, back to the Riri Williams thing, part of it, like the character who there's a person like sort of the hostage situation of the person who created the vibranium detector works, and like even it could still be Riri Williams, but I don't need the Ironheart suit. One, I think the Ironheart suit was poorly designed in this movie. I think it looks like a Beetleborg. It looks like cheap and cheesy. It doesn't look like it doesn't fit with like the other armor that we've seen in this world. And I get it's sort of like it's a Gen Z girl who created it, so it'll be a little bit different than what Tony Stark would have made, but it doesn't really work for me. I liked the movie though. I really liked it. I think again the music is just out of this world. Great performances, and it at least gives them a place to go forward. But like I feel like the Black Panther, like the Wakanda Forever, I feel like Wakanda Forever is shortchanged in this movie. Like there's about like how much time do we spend not in Wakanda? We spend a good amount of time in Wakanda, but like feeling like we're in Wakanda, like the true sort of like the political and social impact of not just T'Challa's death, but like the death of the Black Panther and what that means for this country. Like the scene when Shuri assumes the role of Black Panther and she drops into the council chambers in the Jabari tribe, Jabari lands, is super effective. But I think largely because of the music cue, like it's an excellent music cue from Ludwig Göransson from Ludwig at that point. But I don't know if it narratively like works for me. Like I know that Black Panther has to come back, but I don't feel like as triumphant as when T'Challa comes back in as the Black Panther to face Killmonger in the first one. And again, this is one of the things is like you don't want to compare it to the first one. You don't want to compare it to like the movie you have in your head, but it's Chadwick Boseman's not here, and that's part of it. I would love to see like more of like what Black Panther means to Wakanda, like and for them to see it, like her entire showdown with Namor largely takes place out of sight of most of the Wakandans. It takes place inside the ship and then on the ground in I guess Namibia where they landed, where the desert meets the ocean. That's the country where the desert meets the ocean, right? So like they don't get to see like this is all happening in private. So like we see them return together back to the ship and like sort of squash the beef. But it's like it would have been more effective to see like both peoples, both Talokan and Wakanda, to see like how this conflict is resolved. Because for the most part, Talokan doesn't have beef with Wakanda. A couple of people died, but like they launched the attack to begin with. Whereas Wakanda has legitimate beef with Talokan. So there's places they could have gone with it that they didn't. But I'm not mad at the movie. I still think it's the best movie. Even being critical, I still think it's the best thing that they've done in Phase 4. And I'm excited to see more of Namor. I'm excited to see more of Shuri as Black Panther. And like where they can take it. I don't know how much more time Coogler's going to spend with this series. I would love to see Coogler like go back to making regular movies. He's one of the best directors that we have, and especially one of the best directors to come out in the last decade or so. Like Creed is, I don't want to overstate it, but like Creed is a masterpiece considering the fact that it should not have been good at all. Like, oh, this is a movie about like the spin-off nature of it, the IP nature of it makes it like I don't want to see this shit. But like I knew from the moment that Ryan Coogler was attached to it, and the first time I saw that trailer, I know this is gonna work, and it did. It was fucking outstanding. I want to see him go back to just making movies, but also he does such a great job with the Black Panther movies, and he's so connected to it. I'm not mad at him doing more of that shit. So like, I just want to see whatever Ryan Coogler gets to do. I'm on board. That's all I got on Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. I'm not gonna give it a number or letter grade because I don't really care about that. I think it's worth seeing, and I think it's worth exploring. So Wakanda Forever, and as always, Hulk Hogan, we coming for you, nigga.
I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing.